Hello everyone, it's me Graveyard here, and we are finally doing the tips and tricks strategy video. I'm here with RexmanX and JD Godren, which is going to be pretty much a target practice. How do you enjoy that? Being the target practice. Okay, so RexmanX, what do you think about the target practice we have over here?
Looks so schmexy, you know.
Die. No. Okay, so let's actually get started. We're going to get through the most basic things at first, then we're going through more advanced, and then after that we're going through maybe some personal, like what we prefer to do ourselves. Like, it doesn't have to be the best thing to do. It's more like what I maybe prefer to do, or what Rex prefers to do in a situation. Like,
Yeah, because no one cares about JD here.
no. That's just target practice. Okay, let's get started. See ya.
There'll be girls across the nation that'll eat this up. They don't know that it's just Woo! Love, love, love. Hey. Love, 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 love. Love, love, love.
So here we are, and I'm first gonna start off with the basics of the sword. So the first thing I want to mention is that even though this isn't that important anymore, because it used to be back in the old days, however, if you land a normal hit with just a sprint hit, the target's gonna get knocked back kinda far. If you just land a normal hit like this, the knockback isn't that big at all. However, this of course isn't that important anymore because they updated the sprint back like 1 year ago now, so that's not relevant anymore. So the next part is crits. As we all know, you get crits by falling down towards your target and hit them. You can always also walk down half slabs and get crits by just walking down and hit your target. However, something I want to mention here is that if you go for crits like this in a fight, you usually want to go for a quick kill, because when you do this, if your opponent hits you while you do this, you're gonna get knocked back further because you're already mid-air, so the knockback is gonna affect you in a really bad way, and you already have like this overview disadvantage. So when your opponent gets a combo on you while you're mid-air, it could get a negative effect on you. It could basically just start a combo for your opponent instead. So going for crits is not always the best thing to do. If you really want to surprise attack your target and just kill them real quick, then yes. So another thing that happens when you go for crits is that you're not as mobile mid-air. Like, you can't really avoid stuff like as easily when you are going mid-air like this. Like, if you are doing this constantly, you're not as mobile. Like, if you're just doing this, you can dodge stuff much easier, and if you're just going on the ground all the time. Well, at least I find that easier to do. Do you have anything to add?
Well, it's basically a lot easier to predict if you're in the air.
Yep.
You
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just like that for some reason.
Oh, and there's something else I want to mention about the sword is that uh, depending on what server you play on, it's gonna be different. Like, if you compare Hive with MCSG, the current MCP on Hive is a lot more, like, it's tougher, so you need to be closer to your enemy to actually hit them, and you can't hit them as fast, and you are gonna get lagged back and further. Like, it's gonna be really annoying. MCSG kind of fixed this, and you can get really huge combos on MCSG right now because they really reduced the NCP and stuff. So that's gonna be a factor as well when it comes to sword fighting and comboing. Yes, so that's about the basics right now. Do you have anything to add?
Okay, so now over to the different damages of the swords. So many people think that the golden sword is probably better than the stone and the wooden sword, but it's basically the same as the wooden sword, just with less durability. So as you can see here, the golden sword does +4 attack damage. So does the wooden sword, but it got more durability. The stone sword got 5 attack damage. The iron got 6, and the diamond sword got 7. So basically, if let's say me and JD here, we got the same amount of armor We both got full iron, and he got an iron sword. We'll see, and I got a diamond sword. So if we go into a fight here and trade equal hits, the diamond sword will win. Of course, because it does more damage, and you should be really careful if you see someone with a diamond sword, and you maybe have a stone sword. I mean, you should be really careful, and you should play defensive. Because I see many people just go into a fight and think that they're just gonna beast mode and just go like, oh, I'm just gonna beast you. But that's not the case. You're most likely gonna trade equal hits in a straight up 1v1. So you should be really careful.
So here we are with the bow. The first thing I want to mention about the bow is that there are 3 steps of damage on the bow. Like, you can see easily on my bow that it starts off red, goes to orange, and then green. Basically, the red step, if you fire an arrow on the red step, it does 1 heart of damage to a target without any armor. And that isn't that good on a target with... it's just like hitting someone with a fist 2 times on someone with full iron. That's probably not, maybe not even gonna remove half a heart sometimes. So yeah, the orange step, the second step, that's basically, it does through 2.5 up to 3 hearts of damage. 2.5 up to 3. I don't know, there's no clear info on why it does different damage at different times. I have my theories, and I'm gonna go through that later on. But there's no clear info on why it is that way. Same goes with the last step, the green step. It does 4.5 up to 5.
Or the red step for me.
Yeah,
Just not gonna
exactly. The
confuse.
last step.
Yeah.
So that basically does 4.5 up to 5 on a target without any armor. So that's more. That's basically like a diamond sword crit. But that's if you get this extra half heart of damage, which only happens rarely, according to Minecraft Wiki or something. And that's something I've noticed in game as well. It sometimes does this extra half a heart of damage, and I'm gonna have to go through that later on in the more advanced part, because I have my own theories on why it is that way. I can't confirm it, but I've heard it and I've seen it for myself. So Shant, now, here we go. Basically, if you get the first hit on someone, you can basically combo lock down them. If they keep moving in the same direction, you can basically just lock them down, like that. What you want to do is always move in an unpredictable way. Maybe not even sprinting, because sprinting is predictable. If you switch directions when you sprint, it's gonna be at a predictable speed. If you instead do like this or something like really unpredictable, just randomly sprint, randomly stop sprinting, randomly even do this. I mean,
well,
that's way better.
Something that me and Grave noticed is that it's much harder to snipe noobs, because many of them use the 1.6 sprint and then they fail, and it's just so hard to predict.
Yeah, that's something I even think we went through that in a video once, that if a noob, well, they have this kind of, well, it's hard to explain, but they move in a really unpredictable way just because like they just suddenly stop sprinting and stuff like that, so it's really hard to hit them just because they don't know how to move basically, so predicting their movement is really hard.
Yeah, while people that might be actually better in the game, they might be like this, and they might be like whoop, whoop, and it's
and then
kinda
suddenly
easier,
you're
yeah.
actually moving at a predictable speed, which basically gives it a 50-50 or if you're going that direction or that one, because if you move at the same speed all the time, then a good player can kind of calculate where you're going to be in either of the 2 directions. So always like stop sprinting, randomly start sprinting, which makes it really hard to predict. So do you have anything to add on that? That's basics.
Not really.
Yes. Let's move on to the next one. So, the FNS. Something I want to mention before we even start talking about the FNS itself is that you should always, and I mean if you're going for PvP, you should always use a low fire texture pack. So when you burn, it doesn't cover your entire screen.
Or just a low fire texture. It doesn't need to be a low fire texture pack.
Yeah. Whatever. But yeah, so basically when you burn, it's not gonna be I used this for quite some time myself, high like normal fire, and
Yeah, and the faithful.
yeah, exactly. So I never bothered because I'm lazy. But yeah, if you don't do it, it's gonna be a disaster to fight with, and the weather just decided to. Okay,
Yeah,
so
juggler.
basically that's something you should just switch out. There's no reason to have normal fire, to be honest. So yeah, that's that. The next thing is that when you try to finesse someone, back in the old days, it used to be easy to just. People didn't really dodge the finesse the same way. It was easy to just place it down, get them on fire. It wasn't really a big deal. Uh, Also back then, the FNS was more useful because when we had the double tap sprint, uh, every tick of fire basically interrupted your sprint, so that was devastating. So back then, FNS was way more effective than back now.
Back now.
Back. Shh, I'm tired. Okay.
What, you just slept for like 8 hours? We're supposed to record this like
Yeah, but it
3
takes me
hours.
like 5 hours to wake up.
Yeah,
As well.
we
Okay,
were
never mind.
Yeah,
So
no. I want everyone to know we were supposed to record this like 5 hours ago. You had like freaking a lot of time to sleep on.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get serious.
That was
So
serious.
yeah, okay. But yeah, so now when you can basically sprint while also when they improved the NCP on this is specific for MCSG now. So when you have this longer hit range, the FNS can kind of be if your enemy tries to FNS you and isn't really quick at switching out, you can basically land a lot of hits on them before they even start hitting you. So letting them get you on fire can be an advantage at some times because you're going to be able to land a lot of hits on them before they even start hitting you, even though you take the fire damage. So that's just something. Now about the actual FNS here. When you FNS someone, it's usually used. Well, the most basic thing is to be get chased, turn around, just use it. Try to be unpredictable with it. Something a lot of people do is they back off like this. Sure, that's gonna be well if they rod spam like this, just keep doing that. Okay, I have 4 bars here, so it's kind of delayed the rod right now. However, so when they do that, it's gonna be kind of predictable that when they get close, they're just gonna quickly do this instead, like quickly place down an FNS. That's kind of predictable, so it's easy to dodge. Also, something that makes it even easier to dodge is some people even stare at the ground before they do it. Even though they don't hold the FNS in their hand, they keep staring down in the ground, like it's really predictable that they are going to use FNS right there. Yeah, so that's it, basically. Something, well, that's kind of more in the advanced category. I'm going to get to that later. Something I want to mention is that what you want to do if you are really quick and accurate with it, what you really want to do is that if you stay still, what I mean here is that you basically only have one angle at your opponent. If you stay there, yeah, you want to lit the block on fire that your opponent is actually standing on. Then you get them instantly on fire. If they stand in the middle of a block, you can basically hit them from all directions, but you only have one angle in a fight, so move forward a little bit, just a little. So here is at this angle where it's really hard to hit the block where it's actually standing on because you can't hit directly on them, so you need to hit the actual block. So what you want to do then is try to hit the block in front or wait a little. If it would move forward a little bit more, just a little, well, even more, a little more. Something like that, yeah. Now he's standing on a new block, which I have all this hit space from this angle, which if I do this, he's gonna burn. So it's really easy to hit this block when he's standing on the edge of it. From this angle where I'm going to fight him, it's really easy to hit, and it's a 100% chance to get him on fire. Unless your ping is really severe and he's not actually on the block where you see him. But that's something else. If you have really high ping, then maybe your opponent isn't really where you see him on your own screen, and that's something That's bad. That's just plain bad. So this is the basics for now. Do you have anything to add?
Not really.
Yes.
Just some advanced stuff, but we'll get to that later.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's move on. So, the last item, the support item as I call it, the fishing rod. It's not really a weapon, it's more of a support item, which of course we all know has been more widely used lately as a stun locker, and previously was mostly used in water battles where you just wanted to boost your teammate or opponents away from you. Lately though, for the past year, it's been used as a stun locker or just basically knockback combo opener and stuff. So what I want to mention here is that basically it's not that much to say really. What you want to do is you want to basically rod your opponent when he's charging you, get the combo. However, some stuff you need to be careful about when it comes to the rod is that if you do it too late, charge me, if you do it too late like this, my first hit isn't going to register at all, because Minecraft limits how fast you can register hits on a target. So if you land your rod too late, your opponent is actually going to get the first few hits on you instead. So that's something to be really careful about. If you hit them too early, it's not gonna do anything really at all. So you need to get the perfect timing there. So it's really not that much to mention. The accuracy is something you have to practice yourself basically, because the delay of the rod before you actually throw it away depends on your ping. I hate to say it, but it actually does. So the ping really plays a big part in how fast you're able to actually spam your rod. Since I have, I'm actually back at 5 now, but I'm kind of dropping from 5 to 4. Yeah, I dropped down to 4 on this server. It kind of
You're 4 again.
yeah, it kind of affects how fast you're able to spam the rod, and that's something. Well, a play with high ping kind of has a disadvantage when it comes to rod spamming. That's something. That's just the truth. There's nothing really more to say there. There's some stuff you can do instead of using the rod, which I prefer. Being chased, having your opponent just, let's say, 7 blocks behind you, turn around, do this quick, and hit them instead, because it has the same effect as the rod, really. Also, a bow shot is easier to land than a rod hit, in my opinion, that is. So chase me, just chase me in a straight line, and I'm gonna show what I mean. Basically, chase me, and you get the combo like that. Basically, now that was a little too late actually, because that could have been kind of bad, but that's basically what you want to do. I find that easy to land, just like, and that's the combo right there. So if you have the opportunity to do that instead, I would recommend doing that, because the arrow shot itself causes damage and it starts a combo just as the fishing rod. But of course, the fishing rod can be used in more defensive situations, like if you need to run away and eat, you can turn around quickly, rod your enemy, and get this distance you need to eat. So there's a lot of things you can actually do with it. So just say that, in my opinion, it's kind of overrated. I mean, you can use strategies which kind of counters the effect of it. That's just, I find it kind of overrated, but I mean, we all have different play styles, and that's just my opinion about it. Do you have anything to add?
Well, the infinite fishing rod thing is not really advanced. It's pretty basic,
Yeah.
actually.
Just
I don't know.
switch. Just switch. Never reel it in like this. Never do this.
Well, basically, if you're trying to rod someone away from you, you don't need to do the infinite fishing rod thing. It's not really
Yeah.
smart. But if you're chasing someone down, like if
Yep.
you're trying to get them into a corner, instead of using the durability, basically you throw it out and it will use durability when you pull it back in. So if you just click on
Yep.
back to your sword, it won't take any durability. But if you're trying to rod someone away or something, or boost someone, you don't really need to use it,
Yeah.
because he'll only slow you down.
It's a really good thing that you mentioned it, because that's something I really wanted to mention some other time. Like, I got this comment on one video why I didn't use it. Basically, if I have multiple fishing rods in my inventory, I know that if one runs out of durability, it isn't the end of the earth. I can just switch out to another one. And as you said, it's a lot quicker to actually not use the unlimited. You can basically, it's more freedom to just spam it, like it's easier and everything. Of course it is. So if you have more than one fishing rod, I would recommend it in a tight spot to actually not use the unlimited fishing rod. Exactly as you said. That's a really good point actually. So now about the armor part. So we all know that having more armor bars is a good thing, but what do they really mean? Okay, I'm gonna explain. So basically every armor bar gives you 8% damage reduction. Every half armor bar, yeah, of course, 4% damage reduction. So having a full set of iron armor basically gives you 60% damage reduction, which is of course a lot. I mean, judging from a diamond sword that does 7 attack damage, which means 3.5 hearts. That's, I mean, reducing that by 60% is really helpful, of course. I mean, it's a lot. So basically full chain, 48%. That's when it starts, like, it's a really big difference. I mean, 12% damage reduction. It really is a big difference between full chain and full iron armor. And it's really noticeable in game as well. So this knowledge, what does it really do? Well, I mean, you can basically, if you know what damage your weapon does, and you know how much reduction you get from having a specific amount of armor, you can calculate how much damage you are able to take. You can calculate how low your enemy is, stuff like that. So it's really helpful to know that your enemy is going to die in 2 hits. That's really good to know. Maybe I should run here. Maybe I should just keep trying because I can take 3 more hits. My enemy can take 2 more hits. Just, it's knowledge that's really gonna help to know when you are too low to continue a fight or just stay and kill your enemy, because knowing exactly how many hits you are able and your enemy is able to take. That's basically everything about armor here. Just remember that every armor bar is 8% damage reduction. Yes. So that was the basics. Now we're going to move on to the more advanced stuff. This doesn't have to be weapon specific. It's more like strategies we want to point out, or things that you can do to your advantage. So let's start with this now.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk a bit about the more advanced stuff with the sword. Okay, so as many of you know, you can hit and block with the sword, but if you click those at the same time, you will block it. But this will slow you down. So if someone's trying to strafe you, come on, Chan, try to strafe me. You know, it's gonna be a lot harder for me to hit him. He can just strafe me because of my speed is slowed down quite a bit. So you should only use this if you're going up in the straight 1v1 like this. Come on, Chant. Like up in the face, and you can try to block some hits and do some fish on stuff. Okay, so that's basically it. Just remember not to block hit if someone's trying to strafe you, because they will most likely get really many hits on you and stuff. Okay, so now over to strafing. So when you strafe, you should go from side to side like this. You don't have to do that. You can go like this and mix and go behind and go through, and that's what I do a lot to confuse the other players. I first go at them like this from the side, and then I go through them a bit, and so they get really confused and don't know where I am 100% of the time. Okay, so you should really do that, and especially if someone's trying to block at you, because yeah, you will get a lot of hits. And now over to the more fishing rod combo thingy. So when you go, if you go up in a straight 1v1 like this, someone, you should try to get. He tries to fishing rod you to get a combo, because you get knocked back when you. Well, your opponent gets knocked back when you hit them with the fishing rod, which makes it easier to get a combo like that. So basically, if you're both trying to do the fishing rod technique thingy when doing this, you should always try to get the last hit with the fishing rod, but you should not do it way too late, because then he will get the hit. Okay, Shan, try. Well, that was a fail. You need to hit me, Shant. Okay, go. If you do it way too late like this, you know, he will still get the hits, and it won't really work out. So yeah, that was what I wanted to say. Brave, if you
Yeah,
wanna.
the last part you mentioned, as you said, if you hit too late, it basically registers as a hit. And as we all know, as I mentioned yesterday or earlier, is that if you land a hit and you can't register the sword hit right after, your opponent is the one who's gonna start a combo instead. So
Yeah.
it really,
And
really
as
big.
you also, as you also said, you can use
Yeah.
knockback with your bow. It's
As we all know, FNS is a risky weapon to use. I would say the same about the fishing rod. The fishing rod can really backfire as well if you do it too late.
yeah,
That's something I really want to point out. Many people rod spam without really realizing the fact that it could backfire. If you hit your enemy too late, your enemy is going to get the combo instead. And the strafing you did in the beginning, always remember to watch out for FNS while doing that. Always
Yeah.
remember, be careful. Watch your opponent's head. If it's staring down in the ground, you can basically spot an FNS coming really soon. That's all I wanted to add to that.
okay. So yeah, that's it. That's
Okay, so I want to talk some more about the bow here, the advanced stuff. Well, the thing is, the first charge of the bow, we all know that it's kind of useless unless you're playing one in the chamber where you just want to pull off a quick snipe to kill someone. However, against, well, any opponent, the first charge doesn't do any damage mentionable at all. It's just twice. It's basically like a crit with a fist, so it's completely useless. However, the second step can be really useful at times. I would recommend to use the second step in mid-range to close bow fight, because as I showed earlier, the bow lockdown is a thing where your opponent kind of gets knocked back in a predictable pattern. So when your opponent gets knocked back, you can keep just landing those quick hits without your opponent being able to do anything. Even though your opponent is trying to dodge arrows, if you keep shooting them with a second charge, it's gonna do quite some damage to your opponent. To someone with full iron armor, it's gonna do 1 to 1.5 hearts of damage and each shot, and your opponent is basically gonna keep getting knocked back, and even if they have time to move just a little between the hits, it's not gonna be that much. And as you just keep spamming arrows into them, they are gonna have the same knockback pattern over and over again, and you can just basically keep spamming them in all eternity. In long range fight, however, I would always recommend to go with the last charge step. Like, there's no reason to ever really go for anything else. So that's what I want to mention about that thing. Also, in mid-range bow combat, it's kind of good to always have like the bow charge ready. Instead of, this is something also, instead of using the rod, I usually prefer this. It's to make your opponent kind of confused, charge at them for a moment, miss a few shots. Even though you don't manage to charge back up to your, let's say, it's kind of tempting to charge someone who is just standing there drawing his bow like this. I mean, well, it looks like some kind of weakness. I mean, isn't it really tempting to just charge someone who's just standing there like this in close range battle? Isn't this just tempting to go for it? Like, really, is it just go for it? But the thing is, if you have like the one arrow, like, it doesn't matter if you miss this one, go for another quick one and then use that instead of the rod, maybe. It's just, I'm not saying that this is something you should always use instead of the rod. It's just an alternative. Like, Shan, charge me right now. Like, you could have, like, this didn't really happen now, but well, okay, I'm gonna show you something. Let's have a bow fight for, let's say, 10 seconds, mid range, and then you charge at me. But yeah, basically, instead of using the rod, okay, this was kind of fail. But the thing I want to point out, if you land that last hit right before your enemy charges you, it's gonna be the same knockback as the rod, basically, and it's a knockback that causes damage instead, and that's what I really want to point out here. If you can land that off instead of using the rod, it's really awesome, in my opinion. Do you have anything to add to that, Rex?
not really.
It's a long rant, but as I mentioned earlier, the rod is kind of, I would say, spamming the rod it could backfire more than some people realize. Oh yes, the FOV. Sniping is kind of different if you go to different FOV. Like, I would say sniping normal FOV. This is something I used to play on earlier, and I have no idea how I did it, because now it's really different, because it's gonna go in like this really deep angle. It's gonna be lots more like rainbow sniping, I would call it. It's like you have to predict the angle a lot more. If you have, let's say, Quake Pro, the arrow's gonna go more straight. Well, it really doesn't. It's an illusion, of course, but if you have Quake Pro, it's gonna feel like your arrows move a lot quicker and more straight, but to one cost, your target is way smaller. It looks like, of course, it's just an illusion, everything. But yeah, basically, that's what I'm getting at. So, that's pretty much it for now. You don't have anything to add?
No.
No. No. Let's move on. So, now the advanced things about the FNS. We all know the different placements of the FNS, the quick 180, the jump FNS, all the things you can do, the charge FNS, the quick where you just do quick charge and then start hitting with your sword. We all know this, but there's a few things I want to mention. First, I want to mention this offensive thing you can kind of do. I think I mentioned this in a video I made earlier, but I'm gonna explain it now. So basically, when I charge an opponent, I kind of have this strategy where I miss my rod on purpose to instead land this FNS, because when I miss my rod, my enemy thinks that I'm vulnerable. I missed my rod. He thinks that that's the perfect moment to strike back, because okay, I just missed my rod. He's vulnerable. He goes in for the sword, but no, instead I place down my FNS right in front of him. So that's something I do. I use the rod as a decoy sometimes, just doing that. Charge, miss the rod on purpose, land an FNS in front of my enemy. So that's the offensive thing I want to mention. And it usually works, because it's a confusing moment, the rod. It really confuses the enemy, and that's something I really like to do. Something else I want to mention now, and it's about taking damage overall. And it's the fact that fire is always true damage, or whatever you want to call it. It always does the same amount of damage, no matter how much armor you have. If you have full iron, you take 3.5. If you have no armor at all, it's still 3.5. So it's almost the same, always the same amount of damage you take from burning. It's always guaranteed the same amount of ticks, and you always take half heart of damage each tick. So, what do I want to say about this? Okay, so there is one exception. Actually, when you stand in the fire. As you can see, I take ticks really fast now. But as you can see, not every tick causes damage. And that's my point. And as soon as you move out, you can see I start taking damage actually faster now. Even though I tick slower, every tick does damage. So, without armor, I want to do the same thing. And you can see that every tick causes damage now, and it's really fast. I tick down really quick. And, just to prove my point, once again with armor. You can see how slow I take damage now. Yeah. And as soon as I move out, it's gonna be quick again. Normal pace. So, this brings us to the next thing. The sacrificial fire. This is probably a strategy no one has heard of before, but it's... I wouldn't say that this is something you should do, but it can be useful in some situations. And as you can see, this should only be used if you have really good armor. I really wouldn't recommend using this like something you usually do, but it's just useful to know, I would say. Okay, so this is the point I want to prove here. When you stay in the fire, you don't take any knockback. It's like having no knockback at all. And as you can see, as soon as the fire is gone, knockback is back. So, this is basically the sacrificial fire. While you stand in the fire, you simply don't take any knockback at all. See?
Sometimes you barely get a bit of knockback.
Yeah, and if that's if you stand in a weird angle. If you sneak, it kind of affects it as well. As you can see, no, it really affects your knockback in a weird way, and usually 9 out of 10 times you won't get knocked back at all. And sure, you are going to be taking fire damage, and I would only recommend this strategy if you have a gapple ready to be eaten right afterwards, because as soon as you leave the fire, you're still going to take those 3.5 hearts of damage. So if you're going to use sacrificial fire, always have a gapple, so you can quickly gapple after you have killed your opponent. Because as you are burning, your opponent is definitely going to go for you, and if you just stay in the fire, you basically don't even touch your movement keys. Just stay there and swing at your enemy, because you're not going to get knocked back. Your enemy is going to get really confused, and he's going to keep charging you because simply, yeah, you're burning, and he doesn't know the fact that you take less damage from just standing there. Because as I mentioned earlier, while standing in the fire with good armor, you aren't going to take much damage over time at all. And in a fight against 2 stacked players, the fight is going to be over before you barely take, let's say, 2 hearts of fire damage. So just remember to have your gapple ready whenever the fight is over. So that's what I wanted to say about the FNS. Do you have anything to add?
No. Basically, just talk about everything.
But this is just some
Well, yeah, that was
basically new stuff that I don't think most people knew about earlier. So it's just some good to know stuff.
Yep. Okay, so now we're gonna show you the advantage if you have the lower ground. So, Grave, just start hitting me.
Yeah, as you can see, I can barely even reach him.
But I can reach him.
Really easily.
Yeah, because you have to look down, and for some reason it won't register as well as when you look up. And
Yeah.
if you're on a hill or something, if you stand on the block and crouch and just block hit, you know, it's much harder to get knocked off the hill, and it's kind of easy to kill your opponent.
Yeah, as you can see, I can make my way out here, but I'm gonna take so many hits before I'm even able to break out that I don't stand a chance here. This is a dead spot. There's nothing I can do in a situation like that.
The only thing, if it's a hill, you can try to move a bit and fishing rod them off, but it's gonna be kind of hard to do. But there's no need to try to fight them like this. You know, that's just not gonna work out.
Never fight like that ever.
No, it's really not gonna work. You can try to run away, or you can try to fish rod them off if you have the opportunity. But
if you find yourself in a spot like that, just escape, run, try to get away. If you fight, you are dead. Unless you have some kind of extreme advantage over your enemy already, like gear wise or weapon wise, but otherwise never go for it. Ever. There's no reason. The best thing you can do is just escape as soon as you find yourself in a spot like that, and just don't even try.
Yeah.
So here we are back with another kind of similar situation. This, however, if your opponent is down there, and this, as you can see, this environment has slightly more escape options. If your opponent really charges you in a situation like this, where you have slightly more space and escape options, come at me. Like, you could always try to go for a knockback. Well, Rex, charge me. Try to really cause damage to me with the sword. Try to really go for an in for a kill. You could always try to go for a knockback hit. Really try to land at least. Like, you are at the disadvantage up here, but if you manage to get the first hit, which causes knockback, you can actually cause some serious damage. Like, this hill is really tiny, but I mean, let's say this hill was 10 blocks high, and your opponent charges at you, and you manage to get that combo off, like I did right there. If that happens, your opponent is going to take some serious damage right there, maybe even die.
Yeah,
so
but, okay,
if you manage to do that,
yeah, but there's one thing. You need to understand the difference between someone standing here and block hitting you while you're here, and someone trying to go up the mountain to attack you. Because it's
exactly. That's why, in my opinion, you should only give it one chance in a situation like this. If you fail at hitting your enemy back, escape. Don't even try, because then you are already at the disadvantage. Because if you don't land in initial backward hit, where I managed to do that, if that doesn't happen after the first hit, and you start taking hits, then just run, because it's not worth it. You are going to lose the fight if you stand by trying, because you have basically one chance at doing that. That's my opinion. And something else, the bow. In a situation like this, the one on the higher ground kind of has the advantage here. I have full overview of Rex right here, and I kind of have this grass block here, which makes him really, like, even though he can't hit me, it's going to give him some really awkward angles where he can basically just hit my head, maybe slightly more my shoulders and stuff. It's really gonna give him a hard time to hit me. Well, I have this limited strafing area, but still, he has a really hard time to actually land the few spots where he can actually shoot me. Because let's just imagine like those aren't here. I still have this entire hill where I can basically just cover, and I can still hit him really well, and then maybe even cost a knockback.
Yeah, you can just do like this, and
This is basically just some
yeah, and then just
things
go and hide.
we can do with the environment and stuff.
Yeah, so they will be damaged already, and then you can just go and knock them off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Also, if you're gonna try to knock them, but if they're standing there trying to block at you like this, you could
Yeah,
always start a bow spam like this, and it's
yeah.
that
Go
kind
for a
of
few.
defense.
Yeah, exactly. Go for a quick few shots and see if you can weaken up their defenses.
Yeah.
Because if they just basically camp there, and they don't want to give up the lower ground, because if they indeed lose patience, and if they stand like here just block hitting, like really try to go for the serious block hitting or whatever they want to do, if they give up that when they start getting bow spammed like that up here, then they have taken some arrow damage, and then they no longer even have the lower ground advantage, so then they are suddenly at the disadvantage. So, but yeah, most players usually don't charge like that after taking a few hits, so that's something you shouldn't rely on really, but it's something to know at least.
Yeah.